It's too hard to sell on Etsy in 2020. It was so much easier in the past. I hear this so much. It's just too hard to sell on Etsy in 2020. And you know what? It's rubbish. And I'm going to talk about why. So the first thing is, on all platforms all the time, people are always saying it's too late to do this. You're on YouTube just now. Have a search. Is it too late to set up a YouTube channel in 2020? There's loads of videos on that subject because people ask that. Is it too difficult? Is it too hard? And I started in Etsy in 2008. So people are going to say, well, Pam, you had it easy then. Now, Etsy was only a couple of years old, but in the forums, people were already saying it's too late to start on Etsy. So how can it be the case that people looking back now are telling me I've got it easy because I started then, when I started, people were looking back and saying it was too difficult? That can't both be right, huh? And actually, if I go for a snoop on eRank, you can actually in the top sellers menu, look at the top sellers at the time they started their shop. So you can find the top sellers, the top 100 sellers who've sold the most, who opened their shop this year, who opened their shop last year. And you can check and see there is always sellers coming in who have made hundreds of thousands of sales in their first year. Now, I don't know the history of most of these sellers. I don't know if they've got a big following. I don't know if they've sold before, but there are always lots of new people coming in. In fact, I dug up a bit of data from 2012 to now using Statista and Etsy data themselves of the total number of active sellers on Etsy and the total number of active buyers on Etsy. And you can see over that time period, the number of active sellers has gone up around 3 times, whereas the number of active buyers has gone up over 6 times. So I ran a little math to look at the ratio, the number of buyers to every seller, and pretty much year on year that has gone up. In 2012 there were 11 active buyers to every active seller. And now in 2020, it's up to 19 active buyers to every active seller. So there's almost twice as many people buying per seller than there was before. Now, I'm not saying it's not difficult to sell on Etsy just now. I am not saying that if I took the tools and the experience and everything I've got just now and went back in time and opened a shop, I wouldn't do awesome. I completely would. But in 2008, I didn't have those skills. In fact, most people didn't. The barrier to entry in Etsy was actually so much higher in 2008 than it is just now. Firstly, equipment. To get decent photos, in 2008, you pretty much needed a DSLR camera, and I did not have one. I had a reasonable point and shoot camera, but the results were nowhere near as good as what anyone could get off their mobile phone today. So the ability to take great product photos, if someone had any kind of background in photography, they were way ahead of the curve back then. Most of us, we had pretty bad photographs. And also all the other things, the lightings, the light tents, the backdrops, there were far less of them. And they were pretty expensive. And the chance of having a mate with a super good camera or an interest in photography, nowadays everybody's an expert in photography. Everybody knows someone who can take great photographs. So it is a little bit easier to find someone who can help you out. My first photographs on Etsy were really awful. And also it wasn't just there was less buyers there. There was less opportunities for new buyers. There was no guest checkout. A person had to be logged in to buy on Etsy. And they had to find out about Etsy to be able to buy on Etsy. There weren't the Facebook ads and the Google ads for us. There wasn't campaigns on the television yet, or there certainly wasn't in the UK. People didn't know about Etsy. Etsy was actually a pretty new platform, and if you've looked into joining any of the other new platforms that have come and gone in the past few years or past few decades, like New Monday pops up on my feed, Folksy's a thing. There's lots of other selling platforms that have appeared. However, they've always suffered and died because they could just never build up enough buyers. Etsy rode out the storm, but it was not easy in the beginning. And as I said, for that barrier to entry, well, back in the day on Etsy, print on demand was not allowed. Someone else manufacturing your items was not allowed. Your items had to be handmade by you or vintage. I don't even think there was craft supplies at the time. There might have been, but your items had to be yours, created by you, not just designed by you, handmade by you, in stock at that moment in time. Or you could also make made to order, but everything had to be made by your fair hands. There was no designing stuff and then filling in on a order fulfillment site or print on demand site hundreds of different colours of t-shirts and mugs so that you could stock up inventory in like 2 hours, have thousands of items on your shop. It didn't work like that. It took time. And even back in 2008 when people were looking at, why is my shop not growing? Because people didn't just log in, create an account and make loads of sales. It still took time then. Lots of people struggled and failed. So when people were asking, the advice was always, oh, you've got to must have 100 listings. I've debunked that before. That was never the case, but it certainly can help to build up an inventory. So people were saying, must have 100 listings. And there was me sitting thinking, each one of my listings takes many, many hours. To get 100 listings, that's going to take like a year. How can I possibly do that? And yeah, that was the case. It was tricky to build up enough. But the case is, it's very possible to start a shop on Etsy just now. It's not easy, and of course, some of the low-hanging fruit are pretty saturated. You're not just going to be able to open up and sell jewelry. You have to niche down and sell a type of jewelry. But the awesome thing is, there's many people still there for every single niche, so it's more than possible. But for most people, it's not quick, and it never has been. It's going to take you time to build up. So it's not a case of it's too late to open a shop on Etsy just now. The best time to open was years ago, absolutely. You could have had years of having a shop under your belt, learnt all the mistakes, built up a following of customers. But if the best time to open a shop was 10 years ago, was 12 years ago, the second best time is right now. Because if you sit about worrying and saying, should I open a shop just now? Time is passing and other people are opening, and they by the time you open your shop, their shop will be so much older than yours and be recognized by Google and have some customers behind it. So yeah, the best time was in the past. The second best time is right now. Get out, open your shop. It's not going to be easy, but it's worth it. And yeah, the other barrier to entry, people are saying these shops, they've possibly got a huge social media following. Well, compared to 2008, everybody has a huge social media following. 2008, social media was completely different. I think it just started on Facebook, but influencers like that were not quite such a thing as they are now. People with a massive following was so much more unusual. We all have more people following us than most people did that worked really hard. I was considered doing really awesome when my Facebook page built up to a whole 1,000 followers. It's still a milestone, it's still something to be proud of, but there's accounts out there, there's Instagram accounts with hundreds of thousands or millions of followers, and that's not just celebrities, that's normal people, that's not unusual. It's great and it's work, but it's not totally unusual. So it's not a barrier to entry that other people have way more social media following. You probably have more than you think you have. You certainly have more than I had way back then. Anyway, hope that helped. See you next time.